realize I'm always looking at the big picture when it comes to the Warriors, and it's been an incredibly long and difficult month for anybody who calls themselves a Warriors fan. And obviously, if you're on this channel, then obviously you're some of the most die-hard Warriors fans. So I appreciate you guys more than you know, because you guys are true fans of this team, true dedicated fans that are seeking to learn everything and understand as much as you can at the highest level when it comes to what is going on with the Warriors. And everything else aside, congratulations on the relief of the Warriors winning a difficult and close game in the clutch. The game ball goes to Jonathan Kuminga, who was the most effective player on the floor for the Warriors in the fourth quarter, scoring 12 points, and a lot of that coming from the free throw line, where he's been struggling for a chunk of this season. And he missed some tonight as well, going 8 of 12 from the free throw line, but he made the ones that mattered the most. And he continued the forceful play that he displayed against the Clippers, using that momentum to continue into this Suns game, scoring 34 points on 20 shots, hyper efficient, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. This is probably the best 2-game stretch of his career. As a matter of fact, I'm quite certain that this is the best 2-game stretch of his career, putting up 34 points in each of the last 2 games. And if we're just going to look at those last 2 games, well, he's averaging 34 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. Obviously, it's been a very difficult season for Kuminga, who's in a contract year, and he's trying to make as much money as he can. Obviously, we know that he's turned down a $150 million offer from the Warriors because he wants $200 million. And obviously, that really complicates the Warriors situation in terms of what they can pay him and what they're willing to pay him versus what he wants. On top of that, he's been coming off the bench. He's had some really bad games. He's had some really great games. And the Warriors continue to try to figure out what is the best viable path for this team to move forward in a way that makes most sense. And honestly, you guys know how I feel about these small and tiny lineups, and we're gonna get to that. Believe you me, we're gonna get to that in this video. And how unviable and unserious it is if the Warriors want to be true contenders and play a dominant style of basketball. But having said that, why can't the Warriors just use a bigger lineup to start the game? Do they really have to start Dennis Schroeder? Can they not just go Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond, and Trace? The difficulty of running that lineup has always been to try to make it work under the limiting Steve Kerr motion offense, where everybody has to move the ball. The ball's got to swing around 10 times from the top of the key before they get into anything. And obviously in a lineup like that, there aren't necessarily great passers. Andrew Wiggins not a great passer. Jonathan Kuminga not necessarily a great passer. Draymond Green, his passing is all over the map. Trace is okay, but he's a spot passer, not a primary creator. So all you have really there is Steph Curry. And that theoretically should be okay if Steve Kerr simply simplified the offense, allow the Warriors to thrive defensively by using big lineups, and just go straight into actions that make sense for this team, rather than trying to force them into actions that isn't really the best for the talents that are on the floor. That really would simplify the very complicated Warriors situation, wouldn't it? Because they absolutely need a shooting guard, and well, they don't really have one. You put Dennis Schroeder on the floor next to Steph Curry, Steph Curry suddenly becomes a shooting guard. We don't want Steph Curry being the Warriors' full-time shooting guard. Buddy Hield is all over the map. They really need to get this guy out of here. And in case you missed it, you really need to take a look at this clip. As a matter of fact, just listen to what is being said by Draymond Green about Buddy Hield.
Air ball. You're just trying to think about your shot selection. Draymond had to shoot that with the shot clock running down. But you saw Draymond's philosophy there. Hey, wake the fuck up! Enough of the sloppy passes. We got to win this game. Everybody has to be accountable.
Yeah. It's getting bad out here. So you got Buddy Hield, you got Lindy Waters, and you got Brandon Podziemski as your shooting guard options. That's just not good enough. The Warriors need to do something about that. But in the meantime, why can't you just use Andrew Wiggins, who's been shooting really well from the three-point line this season? Allow Jonathan Kuminga to start at the small forward spot where he belongs. Go with bigger and more imposing defensive lineups and see how that works out. But of course, we can't really have nice things when Steve Kerr is in control of this team. And I'm pretty convinced that Steve Kerr actually hates Trayce Jackson-Davis and just bigs in general. This was really a Trayce Jackson-Davis game. When you look at what he did in the first quarter, and when you look at his overall production, the guy was a marvel. He was all over the floor, blocking shots left and right, blocking KD at the rim, grabbing rebounds, finishing plays, finishing lobs, finishing easy plays. And the game started off a little bit spotty. Bradley Beal was going off, and yet the Warriors still had an advantage. Got out to a 34-27 lead in the first quarter, which is great. After running the motion offense for the first 6 minutes of the game, the Warriors turned to more simplified actions, more pick and rolls, more inverted pick and rolls. That got Kuminga going immediately, that inverted pick and roll between Kuminga and Steph Curry, where a mismatch is created, and then Kuminga can go to work. These are the types of actions that Steve Kerr absolutely hates and doesn't want to go to them because that's not his preferred style of play. And yet that is what's best for Kuminga, and that is what's best for the Warriors. Ran more pick and rolls between Dennis Schroeder and Trayce Jackson-Davis, and even a bit with Steph Curry, and Trayce was getting comically easy looks. That's the thing about the pick and roll, is that it gets big men involved, going downhill straight to the basket, and they get easy buckets, and then that creates more of an opportunity for the guards to relax, knowing that they don't have to hit every single shot because the motion entails the shooters get going and they don't get enough looks at the rim, and then the offense gets stale and it gets difficult, and then there are small lineups on the floor at the same time, and then there's no screening on the floor, and the guards can do nothing to get to the rim, and most of the time they just end up burping up terrible contested shots. And that's the sick thing about it all. It happens game after game after game. Without failure, Steve Kerr will abandon what worked for him in the first quarter and then go to the second quarter and do everything the opposite of what was working and just go to the stuff that he wants to go to, whether it works or not. And that's exactly what happened in the second quarter when he elected to ice out Trayce Jackson-Davis, who had an amazing first quarter. Into the second quarter, he played 2 minutes and never saw the floor again. Meanwhile, the Suns are gaining momentum because they're getting comically easy looks inside the paint because there's no longer any protection there. There's no rebounding there. And let me show you some of the lineups that Steve Kerr was throwing out there that allowed the Suns to score 38 points in the second quarter and took back all the momentum that the Warriors got in that first quarter when they played bigger lineups and pick and rolls and all these things that he completely stopped doing in the second quarter of the game. He's playing these nonsensical 3-guard lineups. Potts is out there doing absolutely nothing. He is a minus 17 in just 11 minutes of play. 0 points, 0 creative ability. Basically just doing cardio out there. Warriors are not able to get rebounds. The Warriors are not able to get stops. And as usual, it's just a complete and utter mess. I want you guys to think about this for a second. Again, this is a relieving win for the Warriors, but the Suns were decimated with injuries. Here are the players that didn't suit up for the Suns in this game. Devin Booker, Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, and Royce O'Neal got injured in this game. That's literally 4 rotational pieces, including 2 starters that were missing for the Suns. And it still took a miracle for the Warriors to barely beat this team. Kevin Durant looking like a shell of himself in the fourth quarter. You have to look at the overall context of what's going on. This should have been an easy win for the Warriors. Steve Kerr and his ideologies continue to make it really difficult for the Warriors to play a consistent style of basketball. Buddy Hield can't hit the side of a barn and he's absolutely awful on defense. And yet Steve Kerr continues to roll him out there and play him while he DNP Slo-Mo. Continuously DNP Slo-Mo. When Draymond is missing in action, he puts Slo-Mo into the starting lineup like he did the last game. And again in this game, completely disappeared from the rotation. Tonight, even Kevon Looney didn't play. So the Warriors end up playing a 9-man rotation. And the 4 guys coming off the bench is a shooting guard, a shooting guard, a shooting guard, and a small forward. Are you kidding me, man? For me, from a long-term outlook, it just annoys me to no end that this is going to continue to go on as long as the Warriors come away with these miraculous wins. They really should have lost this game, man. I understand that there's going to be a bunch of you that are going to feel the relief of the Warriors having won this game. I get it, but I am looking at the big picture. I already did the congratulatory stuff, and now I just need to get to the nitty-gritty of letting you know that what they did tonight is unserious basketball. Steve Kerr is literally the ruiner of all good things, man. Really? You play a 9-man rotation and 3 of the guys coming off your bench are shooting guards? Lindy Waters is a shooting guard. Buddy Hield is a shooting guard. Potts is a shooting guard. Those are your 3 guys that are coming off your bench? And then you have Jonathan Kuminga, who is a small forward, playing the power forward position, and he and Andrew Wiggins fail to close games almost every single night, not because they're not good enough, but it's because Draymond is a power forward. You should stop playing him at the center spot, and yet he's a power forward playing next to two other small forwards, who are also playing next to two tiny guards. You will never play a consistently dominant style of basketball. You're a fun but an unserious team if you continue to go with these tiny lineups, man. I'm literally getting migraines watching these games. Literally, my head feels heavy. I get these headaches and I have to sleep with a headache going into the night. Wake up with my head feeling heavy because I know that the Warriors are being sabotaged. Tonight, once again, they had to overcome the deficits created by Steve Kerr in order to win this game, man. These are crimes. Crimes are being committed. Even the Don Nelson We Believe small ball teams would never go this small. If Don Nelson had access to Kyle Anderson and Kevon Looney, he would play them. And he would not go to 3-guard lineups with a small forward who cannot play the power forward position and act like they can. Again, it ended up working out against the Suns. They were depleted. They were missing 2 of their top defenders in Nurkic and O'Neal. And sure, when the other team is also depleted and they are also forced to go very small, okay, it barely worked. And by the way, Steph Curry actually got off to a very good start in this game. He actually took 5 shots in the first quarter. We're not accustomed to that. Oh my God, Steph Curry took 5 shots in the first quarter. And him being a little bit more aggressive allowed the Warriors to play better basketball. Shocker. Unfortunately, the small lineups continued from there on, and then things started to get really inefficient because there's no spacing, there's no screening. No screening equals no spacing. No screening equals no spacing. That is what makes the Warriors offense become super inefficient when they go small. And he is just all over the map, and there are some things that Steph Curry does that are just persistently annoying. These cross-court passes need to stop. They're dangerous, they're risky, it doesn't need to be done. Call somebody over and make the easy pass, man. But more importantly, if they continue to go to these small and tiny lineups, Steph Curry is not going to play a consistent style of basketball. I don't know how else to tell you. You want him to play pick and roll successfully. You want him to get more open. You want him to have the proper spacing. He's gonna need a couple of bigs out there. And as long as it's small ball all day and night, that's just not going to happen. And once again, you saw in the fourth quarter, he was a 0 in the clutch. And that's not new. He's been doing it throughout the course of the season whenever they go small, whenever he gets away from being aggressive, which unfortunately happened throughout the course of the second and the third quarters after he got off to that strong and aggressive start in that first quarter when Steve Kerr elected to go back to tiny lineups. And if you can't consistently rely on Steph Curry in the clutch on a consistent basis, and not just here and there, then the Warriors being able to vie for a title or being in contention, those days are over. So I care a lot more about that than this individual win that they got over a depleted Suns team missing half their rotational pieces. Do you think if the Suns had Nurkic, Booker, O'Neal, all these guys, that the Warriors, the iteration that showed up tonight, would actually beat that team? I don't think so. This was a miraculous win given that Steph Curry was essentially a no-show in that fourth quarter. Would you rather feel like the Warriors are playing consistently great basketball, or would you rather be satisfied with one little game here that they managed to get away with? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. And this stuff is never going to change as long as Steve Kerr continues to be on this team. So from a long-term standpoint, it just annoys me to no end that they actually ended up winning this game. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm super happy that Jonathan Kuminga was able to come through and play an amazing game. But this small ball crap is not designed for long-term success, man. It is not. I have been saying that video after video after video, and it's been ridiculously accurate. The Warriors' talents overcame the deficits of Steve Kerr, and they have to win almost every single game that way. They have to overcome these nonsensical decisions made by Steve Kerr. For those of you that understand what I'm saying, I appreciate you. I'm glad that we are on the same page and we're all serious about what we want this team to be. Those of you that just care about coming away with a win, regardless of what's going on in the overall picture and the long-term situation of what the Warriors are trying to do, if you can manage to understand what I'm trying to say, I appreciate it. If you're not able to, I understand. This channel is incredibly nuanced, and I'm essentially thinking 3 steps ahead of what the immediate results are showing. That's the content that you're going to get on this channel, so you're going to have to take it or leave it. Dennis Schroeder continues to struggle for this team. Once again, super inefficient, 4 of 13 from the field for 11 points. Only 3 assists despite playing 34 minutes. But he came up really big in the clutch. His defense becomes incredibly forceful. As a POA, he really is capable of being a major dog, and I look forward to the day he becomes a 6th man for the Warriors, making an impact for this team in that way. He is an impactful player. He's not in the right role right now, obviously. The fact that he's not had a single efficient game since he's joined the Warriors is not a coincidence. Andrew Wiggins, from a defensive standpoint tonight, was very good. But you look at some of these missed rebounds, his inability to box out and grab a rebound at the same time, because that's not what he's good at. What he's good at is the POA. Being out in the perimeter, occasionally grabbing some rebounds, but constantly interchanging between him and Jonathan Kuminga to play the power forward position. That's just not a viable role for him. And against most bigger teams, he's going to get fried. There's a gross use of Andrew Wiggins to constantly put him in this situation where he has to be a forceful rebounder on top of being a POA. So again, I do think that the most viable solution until the Warriors are able to go and get an actual shooting guard is to just start a bigger lineup. And consider closing with a bigger lineup as well. Again, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, and Trey Jackson-Davis. That is a big lineup across the board. We don't have to concern ourselves with, well, this guy's not playing, that guy's not playing. Then we're just frustrated overall. Now, if any of Andrew Wiggins or Jonathan Kuminga happens to be struggling on any given night, then sometimes you can interchange some things. Maybe get Dennis Schroeder in there to close like you did tonight. But make sure that it's never a 3-guard lineup. By the way, Potts suffered an abdominal strain. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but that's the type of injury that could keep you out a little while. I don't know the severity of it. And that's unfortunate for Potts, but for Steve Kerr, that's probably going to end up being a blessing in disguise, because that will disallow him to persistently play these nonsensical 3-guard lineups for no good reason. I just don't understand what his obsession with Buddy Hield is. Once again, Buddy can't hit the side of a barn. He's 0 for 7, in which case he's completely and utterly useless on both ends of the floor. Why wouldn't you just sit him and put Slo-Mo in the rotation? These are the things that Warriors media will never ask Steve Kerr. And at this point, man, I almost feel like he's mocking me and he's doing this on purpose just to spite me. I keep making videos about getting Steve Kerr out of here, and Steve Kerr will continue to run these nonsensical lineups that makes no sense for this team. Having said that, the Warriors were in the 11th seed going into this game, and now they're back in the 10th seed. They're almost 10 games worse than the number 1 seed. Once upon a time, the Warriors were above the Oklahoma City Thunder. Feels like another lifetime ago. Feels like a very distant dream, doesn't it? Again, I feel like this Mike Brown firing situation is a divine opportunity for the Warriors to make the most ideal change. And these things are going to be harder to do as long as the Warriors come away with random wins like this, instead of just dropping these games like they should, so they can get this criminal of a coach out of this team and play to their true potential, because they have enough pieces to play a much more dominant style of basketball than what they're currently doing. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.